Chad, I don't see anything in chat. Do you have questions somewhere? Or,
I think we just had a question come in.
okay.
Do you see that?
Yes.
Yep. Great.
Okay. From Marianne McCune, who also actually, I don't know what Marianne did on this podcast, except that she was one of the key people, right?
She is an extraordinary editor, is what she is, and was for this story. Yeah.
Okay, so Karen, this is for you. Marianne says, I would love to hear you talk about your role in this story. You're telling a story via two people to whom the story happened. They're both journalists, so they could be telling the story themselves. I wonder how you thought about your job. And to be clear, the reason I ask is because I'm an avid admirer of your ability to listen and think about and tell stories in general, and this one in particular.
Thank you, Marianne. The feelings are so mutual. Yeah, Sebastian and I talked about this a lot. It wasn't a given that I would be involved with the story at all. And I think what it came down to, and the reason why I became involved at all, like at first I was kind of just encouraging Sebastian to record and to tell the story as his friend. But as we started doing interviews just to capture, like each time something would happen, we would sit down and do an interview. I think that as we started doing interviews, it became clear to me as a storyteller that it might be easier for Sebastian to like stumbly express himself to me than to have to find the exact right words to say it. Because like when you write the script, you have to like figure out the most perfect way to explain ambiguous loss. But if we're talking about it in conversation, it can be stumbly, it can be messy, it can be imprecise, it can be more emotional. And it felt like it might be just like a more impactful story if he didn't have to be like the, polished narrator of it. And I mean, I mostly wanted to get out of the way of it and just help him like draw out what he was experiencing, because it's a really difficult thing to explain and to have to like navigate it was really painful just as an observer to watch the highs and lows of it, and to then have to put those in the exact right words just seemed like it wouldn't be as impactful. But I don't know, Sebastian, if that's how you remember it.
No, that's exactly how I remember it. And then there's something else that there's the second aspect to it, which is when we had initially talked about it, me doing the story and you advising me, is Ahmed was not going to be such a large part, and that really comes down to Gregory and Marianne and the whole team at Rough Translation, where Ahmed was a huge character in the story. I mean, he's also a very close friend of mine, but it never occurred to me to have his voice so prominent, and it made the story as far as I'm concerned. It through Ahmed you get to know Kamaran in ways that I couldn't have done, and Ahmed is such a beautiful individual and speaks and is also charismatic and hilarious, and that was because of the story ended up that Rough Translation produced the story.